Here, going live. Takes a moment for the system to catch up. There we go. I think we are live. Welcome everybody to the Thursday live stream for Ask Dave, and we'll devote this to answering questions. Got a few people coming on. Ishmael Samuel, J72IMS, says, what is the recommended height for the MFJ 2010? Only has a 20-foot mast and it's 20 feet in the air. That's probably fine. If you can get it a little higher, you'll get a little lower radiation angle. Can I just add 66 feet of wire to show it as a beam to make a reflector? Yeah, it's not really designed for that, but you probably want something a little bit longer than 66 feet to act as a reflector. You'll have to look at the various Yagi design formulas, and we'll tell you what it needs to be. Soggy, cold, southeast Wisconsin. We enjoy your live streams a lot. 73, Rick K9ETE. That's a cool contest call. In Morse code, it's dit, da, and dit for ETE. Optical Man Jeff is here, and greetings from South Dakota, Sioux Falls, KE0OG. Rod Boy, K6SDW, 30 meters, has been rocking FT8. Wow, cool. Don Z says, hi Dave, from just north of the Twin Cities, KC0DWZ. And this is from Optical Man Jeff, Dave, if you were to strip away the magnetic part of the radio wave, would the electric part still propagate? The answer is no. An electromagnetic wave is made up of an electric part and a magnetic part. Our antennas tend to excite the electric part of that, like a dipole, something like that. And then the magnetic part just comes along for the ride. And vice versa if you're using a mag loop or something like that. But no, you need, see, the whole is the electromagnetic wave as really postulated by Maxwell. And he had a whole bunch of equations with quaternions in them, which were simplified by Oliver Heaviside, into four equations. Four non-trivial equations, I might add. Let's see. Nicholas Hopkins just got his ticket. Thanks for your help. KO4PPD, congratulations and welcome to Ham Radio. Peter O says, greetings from New Hampshire. Bill Malman, hello from AB4P. Jonathan Holmgren, greetings from central Minnesota, KF0CQA. And GPN says, hi Dave in the group. Also Kevin Aponte, KD9DLE in Houston. Bob Darlington says hi. Spike S says hi. Con Wilson says hello from Kentucky. VE6HDH, which is Canada, says hello from sunny Alberta. It was 75 there today. It was 85 here. Evening from KN6OIQ in Desert Center, California. I think it was probably more than 85 there. As a newbie that made technician with your help, I can say the gun world has Elmer Keith and ham radio has Elmer Casler. Okay. Srinivas Chenupati from Oregon, KC7FSY, and I know I mispronounced that. We the People says, hey Dave, Bob Darlington, new folding EME dish is being delivered today. Great. Steve Ash, WB7VEQ, Bob Taylor, Idaho Falls, beautiful day there. It was a beautiful day here too. Windy. David Fuller says, greetings from Southeast Missouri. Um, Nicholas Hopkins says, I'm new to CW and I've never done a QSO for CW. Do you think I could do with one with you? What I would suggest you do is search on the Straight Key Century Club, SKCC, Straight Key Century Club. They have an organization designed to support people just like you who are just starting out in CW. They've got slow code frequencies, and you can find people in just your situation on those. Let's see. Adam KO4PLN says, greetings from hot, dry Ocala, Florida. It can get hot down there, yes. Just passed exam for general. Says he's an avid follower. Well, congratulations. Welcome to HF. Hope to see you on the air. Would using an upstairs window 3 stories at 27 feet as an anchor point for either the MFJ 2010 or the 8010 NFED half wave? I would put like a 3-foot piece of rope between the house and where you have the Balun, and I think that will decouple it enough. I'm basing that on studies I did on metal masts. 3 feet seems to be about the right length. Amy Hansen, KL5BB from Alaska. And Spike is congratulating Adam. And we have N6EF from Sacramento. I was born in Modesto, just down the road, back when everything there was a separate city. Not true anymore. Guy Skiers says 30 meters seems dead in the northwest if my antenna is working. SWR is good until I go over 45 watts and then looks bad. You've got a bad connection of some kind, because SWR should be power insensitive. Okay? Remember to hit thumbs up. Yeah, I appreciate that if you do that. Just put up a 5-10 foot dipole fed with ladder line to an MFJ 986, which I assume is a tuner. Great antenna. Still planning a full wave 160 horizontal loop. Boy, that'll be a great antenna. Any progress on the DX Commander? No, but we're working down our list, and I plan to introduce Callum, my assistant, to it tomorrow when I see him here, and ask him if he can work on that. We're going to be away next week. I do plan to attempt to run this live stream this coming Thursday. We'll be in Salt Lake. Morning from Sydney, Australia. It's where it's tomorrow. Either that or we are where it's yesterday. VK2NAP. Robert Tinsley is wondering, can I build a Cushcraft MA6B from the MA5B? I really don't know. MFJ, which owns Cushcraft, is pretty good about providing even weird little parts. MFJ got really badly out of whack with their backlog because of the COVID-19 virus. Martin Jew is in his 80s, I believe, and so I suspect they're following that sort of thing fairly closely. Fort Campbell, Kentucky, Airborne K5 RPB. Congratulations and thanks for your service, Robert, from one veteran to another. Best small beam for an IC 7300. Well, Richard, what I have is a hex beam, and I have it atop a 20-foot aluminum pole. It's a Schedule 40 aluminum pole, so it's a hefty pole that holds it up. I don't have a tower, but it seems to work quite well. Felipe Lewis says howdy from Dallas, Texas. And Steve Aiken, KI5OZO, says hi from Pohakwe, New Mexico. Bill Mungaven is sending congratulations to Adam. Edward says hello from Union, Michigan. And, oh, that's interesting. Srinivas Chinapati says, no, you were spot on the pronunciation. He says he loves the YouTube channel. Thank you very much. Chris says, good morning from the UK. It's past midnight there. Let's see, they're on summertime. So it's 2 in the morning over there. Good evening, Dave. Could you please explain where a Balun versus an unun would be used? Yeah, I can talk a little bit about that. You know, I'm wondering, Balun versus an unun would be used. That might make a good video topic. Let me jot that down in my book here. Balun versus unun, where to use and why. When and why. I've got, my notebook is chock full of plans for a cross-country airplane trip that I had to plan yesterday and perform today. So, Balun versus unun. It has to do with balanced versus unbalanced. And that's a hard concept, I think, for people to grasp. What's balanced, what's not. I'll make a little video about that. It may take a little while to percolate through the system because the fact that I'm going to be out of town next week, Callum and I have been pushing ahead in the videos so that we're about a week and a half to 2 weeks ahead. So it'll come up in the system, but I will do that. Thank you very much. Let's see. Nicholas Hopkins on UCW. I'll second Dave. Join the SKCC. And that will help you. It's no cost to join it or anything. Let's see. I'm going to have to skip there. They're coming so quickly here. What is gray line propagation? Another video topic. And this brings up the old bugaboo. G-R-E-Y is the English or the UK spelling, and G-R-A-Y is the American. VK5UNX, it's 10:25 Friday, I assume Friday morning, in VK land, that's Australia. Guy Skier, you probably have some arcing over or using an end-fed or mag loop or something that's voltage driven. That very well could be the problem. K7WSR is in Seebeck, Washington. Passed my general exam on Saturday. Congratulations to you. Congratulations, Bill, and welcome to HF. Get a station up and get on the air. Dale Atkin, never done this chat thing. You've been my YouTube Elmer for many years. This is just a little live stream and a chance to chat with viewers. Greetings, fellow OGs. By this time, whoops, it skipped out of, we'll be fully indisposed in the weekend mode. Holiday weekend at that, yes, is a Memorial Day. W7WSR, congratulations on the upgrade to HF. Hello, Dave from Shreveport, Louisiana, studying for my technician, testing on June 19th. Well, all our best to you. And AA7MO in windy Kirkland, Washington. Dave, what can be wrong if my 40-6 now has very high SWR, like 10 plus or 15-1? It's a Wyndham. Sounds like something came loose or shorted. So check that. And it's a Wyndham, W-I-N-D-O-M. Yeah. Let's see. Thanks. We the people. My first contact was S51DX, Slovenia. Congratulations. Guy Skier says, thanks, Dave. Probably where I join lengths of wire onto the great 20-meter dipole. Could be. Could be. Bill Mungaven graduated high school in Kirkland. It's changed since 40 years ago. Yeah, everything has. Show Low, Arizona. Richard Carey. I actually have been through there, landed there in an airplane, refueled, and then continued on to Colorado. Made it from Show Low all the way up to Cortez in Colorado on that flight. Show Low looks like a really nice place. Looked like there were lots of trees around and everything like that. And nice airport with 2 runways. John Ward adds his congratulations to K7WSR. Anthony Becerra says hello. Amateur Shooter says 73. Balun, balanced to unbalanced, unbalanced to unbalanced. Yes. And we'll cover that in the video. Let's see. David Fuller. Oh, you've asked me to do it, so I'll put it up here. It's got your email address in it. That's why YouTube held that back. Eliminating common mode currents. Phoenix, Arizona. It's warm there already. And on 20 at 14260 LSB, anyone want to chat? I don't know, you could check that out if you'd like. I have attached my off-center dipole Balun to a metal pole which is attached to my chimney. Will the pole interfere with the antenna? Interfere in the bad sense, I don't know. It will certainly interact. Remember, the first rule in antennas is that everything affects everything. So if you can tune it up and make contacts on it, it's not a problem. I do not think that it is going to cause you a major problem. Greetings from Commerce, Michigan. Hello from Far West Missouri area. Hello, Glenn. NU0 Delta says hi. Pete Kirchhoff. I had an interesting day today. Like I said yesterday, I prepared for a cross-country to a place up the other side of Grand Junction. Let's see if I can remember the name of it because it was just confusing me all the time. Mac. The Mac is the name of the town, and the airport is just north of town by about 3 miles. And we flew up there on an official cross-country. And I had to prepare for that by getting all the information for the Mac Mesa Airport. And then we were going by Grand Junction, so I had to get all the information for that, you know, radio frequencies and stuff like that. And then Grand Junction is in Class D airspace, which sport pilots can't go into unless they have a certification for it, which I don't. And there were 3 national park areas: the Dominguez Canyon Wildlife Area, the Colorado National Monument, and the Black Ridge Canyon Wildlife Area. And the thing is, when you fly over one of these designated areas, and they're marked clearly on the maps, you have to be at least 2,000 feet in the area, 2,000 feet in the air, so that you don't disturb the visitors. So we kind of weaved around them and got up there. When we left Delta, it was okay. When we got back, we had a whale of a crosswind. We had a crosswind. The windsock was perpendicular to the runway, and it was straight out, which meant at least 17 knots of wind. And the weather radio said it was actually gusting up to more than 20 miles an hour. And I landed the airplane. I've been taught how to land in crosswinds because it seems like this part of the year, that's all there is out there is crosswinds. So we had a wonderful time. I haven't had a chance to just fly. You know, it's always been drill this, drill that, and whatever. So I'm enjoying it. And for the first time, my instructor is telling people that I'm about to solo, whatever that means. So we'll find out. Okay, let's see. Uh, oh, Adam is saying, Dave will say everything will affect your antenna. Yes, I do. Hi, James. How are you? KI5OEB. There's no late or early on this. It's just join as you can. Let's see. Chris Wilson managed to get working a homebrew 40-meter mobile whip top-loaded on a mag mount. Now, the mag mount here is the magnets that connect it to the top of the car. That's different from like a mag loop or something. Okay, managed a couple single sideband and a couple CW QSOs with VK3 and VK4. Okay, so we're around 1,000-kilometer away during the day from the car. Okay, so Chris is in Australia to do that. What's my favorite CW key to use? Absolutely, without question, a J38. It's an old World War II key. There is a Japanese manufactured copy of that called the JJ38, which was made for a while. I don't know when. I don't know how old my key is. My key is actually a JJ38. The difference is that the JJ38 has ball bearings where the key rotates, whereas the American version does not and doesn't really need them. But I've got a couple of these, plus an old J38 that was part of a railroad. It was the kind that it has long screws coming down so that they can be attached to a desk. And that was my very first key, and I got that from my father. And it was an old railroad key. My favorite key to use, so that is the J38. Now, if I'm doing a paddle, it's not right here. The paddle that I like is the bencher, and it's the BY1, Bravo Yankee 1. And it's the classic paddle set for that. And they're still available. They've been available for decades. Was trying to contact one of the viewers that was in Shreveport. Okay. Good evening from the unlucky Ham. Well, I'm sorry to hear about that. Victor Uniform to Kilo Oscar Charlie. Om Prakesh says, hello, good morning from India, which is all the way around the world on the other side. The path from here to India goes right over the North Pole. Okay. Now, the CW Morse keys, where is mine? It's right here. Let me just unplug it. This is the CW Morse key. And the nice thing about this, you can't get new J38s anymore. You can only get them at Hamfests and things like that. And if you try to get it on eBay, they are expensive. They don't need to be. I paid $5 for one at a Hamfest. This is the MFJ 56XM, which happens to be the reference key. Why? Because it works very well and it is not very expensive. You can pay $300 or $400 or even $500 for a straight key, and they're like gold-plated and beautiful and all that. You don't need that to get on CW. This is like, what, a $40 key. And it's on a nice heavy aluminum base, so it doesn't wander all over the desk on you. It's got rubber on the bottom and a little place to plug in. They even supply the cable, as I recall. Crosswind landings are fun with my wife as pilot. Good. Let's see. And shift into high passed his technician today. Congratulations and welcome to Ham Radio. Todd Bagley, thank you very much for contributing to the channel funds. You are undoubtedly the most thorough technical resource freely available to hams. Thanks for everything you do, Dave. Well, thank you very much. Um, and let's see, the unlucky ham, shift into high, congrats, yes. Congrats, welcome to the hobby. Flight instructors like to surprise you. Mine rode around the patch to see how well I was doing, then jumped out after asking for a full stop landing. Oh, lovely. That's where he says go solo. I'd like a little more planning for that. My 102-foot whip, which is a leftover CB whip, on my 79 Continental and Mag mount is all under 1.3 to 1 SWR. When I slapped it on a Buick LeSabre, it jumped past 2 to 1 throughout the band. Well, you can try retuning it and see what you can do with that thing. I'd hate to say lengthen or shorten it because that's pretty permanent, and those whips are not designed to be have their length changed. You may have to put a tuner in there. Chris Wilson, Sydney's Inner West Safe Space. What is the best way to tell if the bands are your antenna system for the lack of contacts? I have an AV680 and an Alpha Delta DXCC for antennas, but do not hear much DX. Okay, we've heard a lot about the upcoming solar cycle. We are, just remember, the new solar cycle has started, but we are still at the bottom, okay? You're going to see over the next 3 years to 4 years, the DX start to blossom, but not just yet. I mean, we are still at the bottom. Sometimes the bands are open. If there's some sunspots, look for sunspots. If there is a solar storm, it could create an HF blackout. The thing about the HF blackout is where the ionosphere is too charged. It's got too much charge in it. And so it blocks radio signals rather than refracting them. It's not block, it's absorb. It absorbs the radio signals, just like the delayer in the daytime will absorb low-frequency signals like 80 meters. So now, as the storm quiets down, it passes through a period where the ionosphere is perfect. And so it'll last a few hours, but it's like 3 days after the solar storm. You can get some phenomenal propagation just for a little bit as the storm settles down. Look for more and better. Still be searching 40 and 20, maybe 17, but by the time we get to the top of the solar cycle, you'll be doing a lot of DX on the upper bands, 12 and 10 meters, even 6 meters, and so on. Most of the radios that are sold today, most of the HF radios, include 6 meters, which is actually a VHF band, but it kind of behaves like an HF band sometimes. And it's called the magic band because when it's open, it is open to very, very long distances. Okay, you can look on, if you've got like a 7300 or if you've got a software-defined radio where you can get a waterfall, you can kind of just glance at that and see whether the band is open. And Shift into High has subscribed. Thank you very much. I'm slowly working my way through the 90s, 90,000s. You have to ground the Buick with a 6-foot copper ground rod. Yeah, drag it along behind you. Optical, you try the reverse beacon network to see how far your signal is getting out, if you can do CW. Well, the radio, the 7300, has a feature in there where you can type in something to be set on CW, and I have test, KE0OG, KE0OG, test, KE0OG, KE0OG. And so I was trying 2 different antennas, and the ones in yellow are that little isotron antenna, and the rest of them are my Big IR vertical. and I'm having trouble making heads or tails of that because there are points in there where it looks like the isotron's actually doing very well. So I've got more work to do before I make that video. So let's see. Love your videos, love your opinions too. Yeah, I'm full of opinions. Um, the radio I have is my main is the ICOM 7100. A lot of people like that radio. Why would you say they aren't very well received by so many other people? Well, the 7100 is getting a little long in the tooth. It's great radio, DC light, and it's also very compact. It was actually designed to be a mobile radio, but it can be used in very small spaces. So if you have just a desk with a computer on it, you can literally sit the radio over in a corner and work from it, and the main unit of the radio goes under the desk. So it's a great radio. A lot of people like them. They still sell them, I think. So it's a fine radio. I don't know that I've never seen anybody diss it. But I've never had one. In fact, I've had ICOM UHF VHF gear, but this radio here, the 7300, is my first ICOM HF rig. Chose that to be the reference station radio for the best combination of price, performance, ease of use, and to be a good radio that a general could buy and stick with for 10 years or something like that. So it's easy enough to understand for somebody who's new to HF. Whereas my FTDX 3000, which I understand is now discontinued, is a better radio, but more expensive and much harder to use. So, I mean, I love it. I think we need to Helmer of the Year. Well, I don't know. The RRL would go for that. I knew when I would solo because my instructor carried a handheld for the first time I'd seen. Oh, yeah, mine did today too. Because my aircraft has no provision to receive VOR signals, which is the VHF Omni Range. It's a direction finding system that can be used to pinpoint your position. My aircraft doesn't have that. Receiver. It's not required for sport pilots to know how to use. She got herself an ICOM radio that has that feature in it, and so I got the same radio. I haven't started carrying mine yet and wasn't planning to for a while, but anyway, yes. Let's see, grand solar minimum. Yeah, John Sambrook has added another $20 to the. Did I miss one here? That one was 20 from Todd. John Sandbeck involved or added $20. Says grateful for your investment in our community, Dave. Keep going. 73 from KJ7RDV. And then Paul Baker included Australian 5. Would it be pounds? I don't know what the units are. But thank you very much. Samantha Skov has a great channel on solar weather and solar activity. And Suspicious Observers does a daily report. That's cool. Let's see. 73s from Murfreesboro, Tennessee. G'day from Australia. And let's see. Isotrons are junk. Well, I don't know. I was finding that it was about 3 dB down from my vertical. My vertical is, of course, a unity gain antenna relative to dipole. So that meant that the isotron would have been about -3, which makes it a compromise antenna. Be useful in a situation where you have extremely limited space. But somebody said, why don't you use the reverse beacon network? And I'm just going to have to spend more time at it. Maybe I'll show my assistant how to do that while I supervise, because I'm the control operator, to go back and forth between the two antennas. The problem is the two antennas are not hitting the same people. There's some overlap, but one goes this way, one goes this way. It's just kind of weird. So let's see. Crazy to see how many hams are pilots. Yes, there are. And I did take video today of the trip, so I can show going from Delta up to Grand Junction, which is the big city for us. There are about 100,000 people or so. It has the only level 2 trauma center on the western slope. It's not a level 1. The only level 1 trauma center in Colorado is in Denver. And a level 1 trauma center is where they have not only doctors on duty and present, but all specialties are not only on call, they're on duty and they're in the building. Now, level 2 trauma center, you've got emergency doctors, but the specialists are on call. A level 3 trauma center, which we have here in Montrose, is everybody's on call. So you got to remember, if you're going to the hospital, call ahead so they can call that specialist who may get to the hospital the same time you do. Okay, let's see. How many hams are also musicians? One of the Eagles is a ham. I don't know. Hard to break away from the extra class videos for this. Hallicrafters rehabs. Ooh, wow. I've got an S20R right there. And I've got little Hallicrafters out in the garage that I picked up at a garage sale or whatever it was for $2 or $3. It's a All-American 5 based radio. There's a 5-tube set, and there was a universal and universally available for the rights to that radio. And for 20 years or so, all AM and FM radios that were sold in the U.S. were little tube receivers. And they had this same 5-tube set. That's why it was called the All-American 5. And you could buy all 5 tubes at once if you wanted. The filaments were all in series and added up to 110 volts. So there was no transformer. It was very inexpensive to make. Sweet Home, Alabama. What type of antenna do you like for HOA locations? Well, it depends what you can make invisible. One thing I would recommend looking at is the My Antennas end-fed half-wave, either the 40 or the 80 meter version, because it's made of gray wire. It's fed at the end, so you don't have a big old cable hanging down. You just can kind of go across your yard with the thing, and it can be near invisible. So you can make the ICOM handheld a part of your panel in AC. Yes, it would do it. JTAN is in Adelaide. Let's see. I don't live in an HOA, but I have a ground-mounted vertical in my backyard, which I can take down quickly when necessary, like during high winds or when entertaining. Scott Clifton says, fellow SEL pilot, WB0WIL in Naperville, Illinois. I have a old roommate from college, lives in Naperville. And Burgermeister likes to learn about radio. It's a very cool thing. Ham radio is a hobby for people who love radio. Let's see, middle license, well, that's general, full only running 20 watts here, so CW has been my mode of choice. Well, good for you, because 20 watts on CW is good. Dale Pensgen flies gliders out of western New York. I have had one trip in a glider, and you pull on that stick to turn, and I actually came close to blacking out from the G-forces on that thing. Wow. Glenn Martin has a son and grandchildren in Grand Junction. And Scott Clifton says he's a drummer. Musicians, barbershop, and flute and piccolo. My daughter learned flute in high school and had to rent a piccolo for a while for a particular concert. I have an Elmer gifted 20-meter dipole and a 50-foot tower next to my house. How inverted can I make an inverted V? You want the central angle of the inverted V to be at least 90 degrees. Okay, if you come like this, it starts to turn it into more of a transmission line. Okay, at least 90 degrees. Some people say the optimum is about 120 degrees. I have not modeled this. Sounds like something interesting to do. Let's see, model, central angle of inverted V. The inverted V is a nice antenna. It's a dipole and works as well as a dipole, but it can be easy to put up. Roz Brown says she, can't tell from the little tiny picture, full-time musician in the Denver area. Great. And Chris Wilson plays bass. And let's see, I play in a Clash covers band and guitar in a punk band. They are dollars, Australian dollars. Okay, thank you very much for that. I appreciate that. It's amazing how many countries use the name, if not the currency. I understand there are some countries like, it's not Peru, somewhere in South America, they have their national currency, but their essential economy is in dollars, real dollars, greenback dollars. I know in the Caribbean, in the East Caribbean, there's something called the East Caribbean dollar, which is a currency used by several countries. Each country is a big island, you know, and they're pegged to the dollar, I think 3 to the dollar. So they're fixed in value to the dollar, so that keeps from having these runaway currencies and so on. Okay, and somebody tried to send an attachment. It didn't work. 50-foot tower, lucky dog. You could put up a 40-80 trap dipole for sure, absolutely. Any nearby trees, you could have an 80 dipole or off-center fed dipole. CW was natural for me. I learned CW when I was 11. CW was anything but natural to me. I struggled for years with that. I finally got a roommate who was not the least bit interested in ham radio. He learned to send code about as fast as I learned to receive it. And all I needed was 5 words a minute. And that's how I finally got over the hump and got my license. Okay, as a legal approach, what came through was a file ID. I need an antenna advisor. Well, that's where your club comes in. Link to above. Okay, flight instructor once stated when I was in training that many students thought if their passenger had a medical emergency to land at the nearest airport, but the airport nearest to a hospital is better. Yeah, true. True. And you declare an emergency when that happens. And squawk 7700. And that gets everybody's attention in a big fat hurry. And there is an there's a national frequency for distress, which is 121.5, that you can get on, and they will get you hooked up with the right people. Can take a while for an ambulance to get to remote airports. True. Delta is a good place because it's not very far away from the Delta Hospital. The Montrose Airport is also not very far away from the hospital. I'd go to Montrose first if that were my choice. Grand Junction is not very far away from St. Mary's, which is that trauma center that they have there. I saw it from the air today and pointed out to my instructor that I had the opportunity last year to spend a fair amount of time there. Found the XYL much more difficult to deal with than any HOA. How about a video? Well, you need to get your wife into ham radio. My wife is KE0OG, and she has some ground rules for me on antennas, but otherwise I can do what I want. Vodka? Oh no, this is, yeah, asking for a friend. This is not vodka. This is H2O, the pure variety. Oh, Mama sang bass, Daddy sang tenor. Felipe Lewis adds $50 to the channel revenue. Appreciate the channel. Would love to hear more about the origins of radio, rotary spark gaps, etc. Thanks again for all your efforts. So spark gap history. The first ever demonstrated radio was by Heinrich Hertz, who had a rotary spark gap, and he figured the resonance of it needed to be about in the 2-meter band in order to fit into his demo room. And so the very first signal that was sent and received by basically a mag loop antenna with a spark gap was in the technician band. So let's see. I learned CWH15, got a novice call, got back on the air, used a straight key, and had a few compliments on my fist. Yeah, Eagles Joe Walsh is there. They often take dollars in Costa Rica. I'd like to put a multiband vertical on that tower, but hard to look a gift dipole in the Balun. The NFED half-wave antenna, the KM4ACK is out of stock. Try the My Antennas one. I think one of the great discoveries during the pandemic was that there is no such thing as a non-essential business, because all these outfits and manufacturing plants and everything stopped making stuff, and now there are shortages. Like Ford has F-150 trucks lined up waiting for a stupid little microchip that wasn't being built during the pandemic. And Intel has said that it will step in and help make that, but it can take 6 months to a year to run up a production line for a new IC chip. On DS Commander, Callum is a drummer. I'll have to talk to my Callum and see if he is a musician. I understand he plays the piano quite well. Now the digital currencies are coming out. Yeah, I'm not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. I don't want any Bitcoin. You have to do special reporting for taxes. And it says the U.S. Fed will have one later this year. Yeah. The problem with the digital currencies, the problem with Bitcoin, is there's no central bank that can expand or contract the supply of Bitcoins to keep the value stable. And that's how the Fed keeps the value of the dollar stable. The Fed has the ability to print money. And as the population grows, more people need money. So with the way Bitcoin works, you have to go through an algorithm called mining to mint a Bitcoin. And the original idea, the original Bitcoins were worth $1. But the problem is that the mechanism is supposed to be self-regulating. The mechanism for creating Bitcoins has gotten so expensive and so energy intensive that people are starting to come down on Bitcoin for just wasting electricity to create new Bitcoins. And there aren't enough Bitcoins to meet the demand for Bitcoins, and so the price has skyrocketed. And all it takes is for some guy like Elon Musk, who was taking Bitcoins for his Teslas, to say, I ain't going to do that no more. And then all of a sudden the market collapses. So, if the Fed comes out with a digital currency, I've got digital currency in my pocket. It's called a credit card. I don't need to carry cash. In fact, my flight instructor, asked me if I could pay her in cash for a couple trips because she needed the cash. She was going somewhere. So I went down to the the ATM, and got $400 out. She really only wanted about $90, and so I was left with $300 in cash. I still haven't gotten rid of it. Been trying to pay for things with cash. Ham Club's live meeting, good, from Ranger Smith. Let's see, I think I missed some comments here. Amateur radio on the air. I've threatened to do some remote rhythm session work with Callum. Yeah. The ERRL end-fed half-wave antenna kit goes quickly in and out of stock every 2 weeks. Yeah, it's hard to get things right now because coming out of the pandemic, during the pandemic, a lot of people saved a lot of money. Good. But now everybody's trying to spend it at the same time. And so what that's doing is pushing prices up. So the Fed is going to have to make more money to pull the prices down. Now the Fed can not only make money, it can make it disappear too. So that is their job. Their mission is twofold. One, avoid inflation or deflation. In other words, keep the value of the currency stable. And second, keep employment as high as possible. Those are often conflicting objectives. And they're having a little trouble right now because everybody's coming out of the pandemic and they haven't spent their paychecks in 6 months. And they're going, I'd like to get this. Will you go down to get it? And it's not there. So, I ordered, somebody asked the question, can you use ham radio with an inverter generator? The answer is yes, but the standard answer is you have to turn off the auto load feature so that the generator runs at full speed all the time. Otherwise, the highly variable nature of the power draw from your radio will send that generator into a tizzy. However, MFJ makes a box with 4 full farads of capacitance in it that can smooth that out. And I wanted to demonstrate that, so I thought I'll just order one of those boxes. Well, it's on back order, like a whole bunch of stuff at MFJ. Okay, Bill Mungaven, let's see, drove apartment neighbors nuts with my spark gap transmitter. Yeah. Made a homebrew end-fed half-wave cut for 40 meters, which I use in my POTA activations. Not as hard to make as I thought. Yeah, plenty of YouTube videos. You just need a Balun that'll get the impedance up if you're going to end-feed it. Get it up to around 2,000 ohms if you can. Stable. Central banks tend to almost always cause constant inflation. In fact, the Fed has set a target of inflation of 2%. That has been conventional wisdom for a manageable amount of inflation that still allows for economic growth. And I'm not saying whether that's good or bad. I'm just saying that's what they do. I realize that there are a lot of people who hate the central bank, but, they are what they are. Fed, not reserve. Fed folded into, oh, I don't know. Let's pass on that. Bitcoin, the lack of a central bank, is a feature. Yeah, a feature is what you call a bug that you have no fix for. And what has happened is that Bitcoin has made some people millionaires and bankrupted others. So all those virtual currencies are valued in dollar terms, which just varies. I mean, the whole point was being able to pay for something without leaving a record. In other words, like using cash. But they're more used as investment vehicles right now. Fergal Sharkey, the former lead singer with the Irish punk band The Undertones, is a ham. I met him when I worked with Shane McGowan in the 1990s, and we chatted about radio. From Andy, EI8KF, which is in Ireland. Cashless societies were studied in the 1960s. I know, and we keep moving in that direction, but cash is sure handy. The Yaesu 891 should be there tomorrow. Now to get my general. Yeah, go ahead and get that general. Reason for cryptocurrencies. I know, they wanted to get away from the central banks, but it was not structured to be inflation resistant. And it's clearly inflated like crazy. Hang on to some cash in a power outage, it would come in handy. Yeah. A lot of people save money. More money supply is inflationary. There's a balance, because if you bring the money supply down, it becomes deflationary. And the idea is to keep it reasonably stable. And it's kind of going wacko today. I mean, the price of gasoline and everything like that. Okay, you want an inverter to be a true sine wave. Yeah, but there's more. A sine wave inverter, if you put it on an oscilloscope, puts out a sine wave. But don't forget about this thing called power factor. Most cheap sine wave inverters will not run an inductive load because the power factor is too low. Like, for example, plug a drill into your sine wave inverter, try and run the drill. It will not get anywhere near full speed because the inverter cannot manage the low power factor. The utility can manage it because it's got all this load lumped together. Most of the utility load is, in fact, inductive. Think all the motors in your house, the refrigerator, the air conditioner, the heater, whatever. They've all got motors in them. Motors are made out of coils. Coils are inductive. So unless you have some provision, the pricier inverters will handle the lower power factor. I should get one and study it. Let's see. Dave, I have a 33-foot vertical unfed half-wave made from a number of telescopic aluminum tubes between a half-inch and 1.5 inch. Any reason to feed point impedance is closer to 850 ohms than, say, 2 to 5K? 33-foot vertical end-fed half-wave. Well, if it's end-fed, you need radials, and the feed point impedance will be about 30 ohms. Just 30 ohms, that's all. It will be, the reason it will be that is because you've got your radials out here. You're actually feeding the system in the middle. And 30 ohms, so you're going to have about a 1.6 to 1 SWR. Can you put a Balun in there that will change that? The answer is absolutely yes. You certainly may. And looking at notes from my sister, she managed to mangle her wrist somehow today. Okay, let's see. Yeah, the feed point impedance should be about 30. You can direct feed it with coax. Tubes in the All-American 5, 35Z5, 12SA7, 12SK7, 12SQ7, and a 50L6. And you add that up. Didn't know filaments with that high a voltage. Oh, if you get into some of the big transmitter stations like AM transmitters, they could have 100 volt, maybe even 240 volt filaments. Gold is valued with the Fed at $42. No, gold floats. The price of gold is set in London every day, once a day. 4 farads in one box sounds like a bunch of batteries. Well, that's exactly the point. So you can run it with the inverter generator on the low power mode. And if you get a peak power draw from the radio, it draws it from the capacitors, and then the inverter generator gradually comes up till it's recharged the capacitors and comes down. And that's what I wanted to test. Well, you go over phase. For a practical oscillator that is one tube with a 117 volt filament, you avoid transformers. Transformers are much more expensive than tubes. So, let's see, phase. Would like a primer on phase. Phase primer. I can do that. Okay, virtual, oh, yeah, there's a lot of, yeah, scarcity. Well, that's what makes something valuable. The thing is, scarcity means an imbalance between supply and demand, okay? And that happens with gold and silver. Now, you would think, well, everybody has their big piles of gold, but the problem is that gold is an industrial metal. It is used in industry extensively. Gold can be made extremely thin and still be reflective and opaque. The Colorado State Capitol, remember, Colorado's early economy was gold mining. And the Colorado State Capitol dome is coated in a very thin sheet of gold and still looks great. Yeah, deflation's not a good idea. Oak Hill's research, the principle behind that passed away recently. The Oak Hill's products, I've got one of their QRP radios. And I had trouble with it. I mean, it does work, but it's technically way out of date. And I have not heard that anybody is taking home. It was trying to remember, the Oak Hill's research and several other brands were taken in by this one guy. And so he sold very few of them, but sold enough to make a small business out of it. I don't think, I'm guessing here. I'm guessing that those brands are going to kind of disappear, that someone will come in and sell the remaining stock, and that will be the end of it. But I do have that Oak Hill's radio. It's a 20-meter CW rig. And it does work. If your wages fall 5 and the cost of a basket of goods drops 10, you're still ahead and richer with a pay cut. But it's got a balance for the business. So count on a 10% pay cut. That's why the Fed is just desperate to avoid deflation, because it just really throws the economy for a loop. Only used a straight key, never liked the paddles. Good for you. Will you be taking your IC7300 and your buddy pole on vacation? I will be taking the buddy pole. I will probably be taking the G90 on vacation, not the 7300. Which would be better, end fed or center fed? A dipole is a dipole is a dipole. How you feed it doesn't affect the fact that it's a dipole. So it's going to behave about like a dipole. Some people find end feeding more convenient because you don't have this big cable hanging down from the antenna in the middle. And I was very surprised by the performance of my antennas in fed half wave. It was fabulous. It worked very, very well. Let's see, so Rob 25 that was 150 feet tall. Looks scary flimsy even with 4 sets of guys. Yeah, that looks flimsy. The antenna is 33-foot end-fed half-wave for 20 meters. Oh, not a 40-meter quarter-wave ground plane. Then you don't need the radials, but you do need a counterpoise. Any reason the feed point impedance is closer to 850 ohms than, say, 2 to 5,000 ohms? Well, everything affects everything. If that's what you get for an impedance there, set up your Balun to feed it that way. The Balun will need to work against a counterpoise, which can be just simply wire laid in the ground, or you can put in like 3 or 4 radials or something like that. Gas prices are skyrocketing because of the, well, first of all, gasoline prices are extremely flexible. I've noticed over the years that they always go down just before a general election, and then wander back up. We had that pipeline problem. My understanding is that what was held for ransom was not the software that ran the pipeline, but the software that billed for the material that was delivered. And the company was simply not going to just give away free stuff if they couldn't bill for it. So they shut it down. Fortunately, it wasn't for too long. People overreacted to it, pushed the price of gas up. But it's probably going to stay up for the summer because there's going to be more people traveling. There's a lot more air travel. Jet fuel is basically kerosene, and it's made in the same refineries that make gasoline. So, there's going to be a lot more demand now for the kerosene. And if you turn petroleum into kerosene, that means you're not turning it into gasoline. So prices get weird. The problem with the zero inflation economy is it's like cool idea, but really hard to do. Yeah. And then you get into the politics of the borrowers versus the lenders. Most people in the United States are borrowers. I am for my home. Okay, I'm a borrower. I love inflation because I get an increase in my Social Security. It's not quite enough to cover everything. The prices of my savings invested in the market go up, and the amount that I pay for the house every month stays the same and has been the same since we last refinanced. I've got like 6 years left to go on the mortgage, and what I pay for this house for a house payment will barely get you a 2-bedroom apartment in town. So borrowers love inflation because it decreases the real value of the debt. Now, deflation would increase the real value of the debt, which the lenders would love. Now, the way that balances out in the economy is the interest rate, which has been quite low for a number of years. What say you about using military surplus aluminum bolts for multiband vertical? You've got to do something to make sure you've got an electrical connection between the sections, because I've got 5 of those 4-foot sections. forming this 20-foot mast right outside, the one that the isotron is on right now. And you've got to make sure that they make physical connection because they're dirty, they've been thrown in the mud, they've done everything. You got to do something to make sure that each joint between the two poles has a solid electrical connection between them. So, inflation, oh, wow, yeah. Yeah, now, this business about oligarchs tending to be reckless borrowers themselves is not a new problem. The problem goes all the way back into the Middle Ages when people started borrowing to finance wars. You want to fight a war between England and France, it's got to be paid for. And so people would borrow money, and they would throw the economy way out of whack. World War II bankrupted England, trashed Germany. The French weren't too terribly badly hit. Their production facilities were largely intact. The United States had put most of its young men under arms, and so it replaced them in the factories with women, put women into the economy. And so at the end of the war, there was gobs of money. And the way the U.S. paid for World War II was Truman instructed the Federal Reserve to inflate the currency enough to make the bonds payable, the war bonds payable with the existing tax revenue. Now that hurt a lot of people who had saved because there was quite a bit of inflation in the late 40s. That's how we paid for the war. And we ended up coming out of it economically extremely strong, whereas the Brits, who paid for it in gold, were trashed. Their economy did not recover until Margaret Thatcher came into power and so on. Should use cash. Actually, I'm afraid of cash. I don't like cash because of the very feature that you talk about, the freedom. Cash is cash. Each bill has its own serial number, but nobody tracks them unless there's some shenanigans going on. I have used a debit card since I was in the Air Force, and that was 45 years ago. And everybody was saying, don't use a debit card, you'll die. I've never had an issue. I've had issues. I've had mistakes made. But every financial institution I've dealt with has always promptly corrected that mistake. And frankly, I don't like credit cards because you actually build debt, whereas a debit card is like writing a check. So I actually finally got a debit card for my PayPal account because it was getting weird moving the money around. But anyway, slot antennas. I've never made one. I'll have to look at that. Fractal antennas. I've never made one of those either. The price is low for flexibility in case of emergencies if they need to raise a balance. Yes. It's a very slot antennas would be fun experiment. I have some sheet or roll. It's actually a roll of tin. It's very thin, but I think I would try to make I might try to make a slot antenna out of a piece of that. A slot antenna. Think of an antenna as you got a wire, and everything else is air. Okay, a slot antenna it's like taking a negative of that, where the antenna is air and everything else is metal. And the length of the slot determines the frequency. So obviously this is something you do on VHF or UHF, okay? So I'm going to just put down on my list here for videos, slot antenna. There was a story in QST about them a few years ago. A guy made some and wrote an article. There was not a lot of rush to build them. It's just so much easier to create a wire antenna. Had my first job at $3 an hour in 1970. Wow, you were getting me. You were beating me by double. My first job was in about 1968 at the motorcycle shop, and I was earning $1.50 an hour, minimum wage. And I thought I was in heaven because I'd walk out every week with about $20 in my pocket, and that bought a lot of pizza. And I had to pay for my own gas too. So, but gas was 20 cents a gallon. So, had trouble with my ground-mounted vertical lately with ISWR and found the problem to be oxidation between the connections. Clean the connections, performance returned back to normal. Yes, good thing to do. You can get conductive grease that you can kind of put around those to sort of protect them a little bit. Friday the 13th was about money and debt. You'll have to educate me on that one. The government has confiscated gold in the past. In the 30s, one of the things that Roosevelt did was people had to turn in their gold. They got paid a flat fee. It was about $20 an ounce, and I think they moved it to $35 an ounce at some point. But what they were afraid of was with gold-backed currency, which they had. It was Nixon who took us off the gold standard. If that was too diffuse, it couldn't be controlled. And so that was one of the things he was trying to do as part of the financial rejiggering to get us out of the Depression. What got us out of the Depression was World War II, because the government started printing money, basically, and putting everybody to work, and putting all our young men into uniform and sending them to the far corners of the earth. Bought a Pixie CW transceiver, and you said it was not worth building. Well, it's not worth much, but sure, you can build it for fun. I managed to screw mine up. I built one and broke it, and I miswired a part or something and let the smoke out of something, and I should try another one someday. Okay, I have installed a ground stake and used it as my counterpoise. That would work too. Strangely, it doesn't affect the SWR or Z, but it probably works pretty well. Need to have the discipline to pay off credit cards monthly. Yeah, and I've done that, but yeah. If you can't afford it, don't buy it. My goodness, if people obeyed that rule, the economy would come to a complete halt. Our economy is based on consumer spending. That's the primary driving force for our economy, rather than manufacturing or agriculture. The U.S. is a powerhouse in exporting agricultural goods. It's a major supplier. We feed much of the world's population. But with the COVID crisis and the crisis in the supply chain, people in the U.S. government are coming to the conclusion that they let too much go abroad. So, started in 72 at $1.25 an hour. Yes. Pixie is fun to play with. $1.56 an hour is a longshoreman in Panama City, Florida. Wow. Running my Coax cable alongside the rotator cable through a 1.5-inch PVC pipe for about 2 feet to get it through the wall. I don't expect any problems, but should I? No, you're fine. My first job was selling toys at Christmas time in 76, $2.35 an hour. Wow. Made $1.10 an hour baling hay on a dairy farm in 66. I remember when I was a young teen, 14, 15 years old, went up to visit our cousins up in Washington, in the Tumwater area. and it was in a rural area. And one of my cousins says, "Let's go over to this place because we can pick berries." And the farmer's always looking for somebody to pick berries, and he'll pay us for it. Well, we went over there for about an hour and a half to 2 hours and picked berries, which is a royal pain. So you have to be very careful with the raspberries not to pull them into shreds. You've got to pull them off just right. And I got paid, I think, 43 cents based on the number of berries I had picked. And I looked at that and I said, I will never work in agriculture again. And I remember our church, the Mormon church, has farms and stuff to grow food. They use it to feed members who are in a bad way, and they donate most of it to local food banks. And I went up, we're all supposed to go help, and I went up in the farm, and we were weeding through a field that had gotten some vineweed in it, trying to get the vineweed out. That stuff's nasty. And my son was with me. He was 12, 13 at the time. And after a while, I turned to Jonathan and I gestured down at the field and I says, Jonathan, this is the best argument I can make for getting a good education. And he took to that. He got his bachelor's degree. Okay, Knights Templar arrested on Friday the 13th because of government debt to the Templars. Okay, the Templars invented banking as we know it today. Let's see, I'm trying to cut all 128 radials from a Hustler 6 BTV. Now I read that I can actually super lower the impedance and I may have to insert something for capacitance. No, not really. I mean, 30 ohms is not that much different from 50. You're going to be well within your radio's antenna tuner capability. And you'll be fine. 128 radials is an awful lot of radials. I think I have 30, and I think I'm over radialed. It is where gold is pretty and doesn't corrode. It'd be really thin because it's quite soft. Value comes from scarcity. In the manufacturing world, they're used in semiconductors, the little wires that, you know, you've got the case for the semiconductor, and it's got pins on it, or pads. And those are connected to the chip with very, very thin gold wires. And the reason for the wires being gold is how easy it is to manufacture with it, because it is soft, malleable, an excellent conductor of electricity, doesn't corrode, and makes it an excellent metal for doing that. Well, in any given IC, there may be 0.0001 cents worth of gold, but you multiply that by the billions, trillions of semiconductors made every year, and it's a lot of gold. So let's see. Can't eat gold, right? Good luck. My large American luxury cars are great ground planes. True. Yeah. And a lot of vehicles today are made with plastic. In fact, I was trying to get out of the airport one time, and I went up to the gate that's near where the maintenance hangar is, where the mechanics work. And I got up to it, and it wasn't working. And one of the mechanics came over to me and says, you've got a plastic truck. You got to get right up on top of that thing for it to sense you. So I got like 2 feet away from the gate, and sure enough, it went up. So, Ranger Smith worked in agriculture as a youth, helped grow corn, soybean, and tobacco. You know that rice is a big American crop, huge American crop. It's shipped to Japan, other places like that, because U.S. rice is considered really good rice. Japan tries to protect its own farmers, so there are tariffs, but I don't know, there's a lot of things going on. They do make super heavy duty springs for 102-inch whips to help tune them between 10 and 12 meters, so you may want to look into that. Okay. Bindweed, convolvulus volus. It's convolutional, that's for sure. That bindweed is nasty stuff. It has nice flowers, but it gets into everything. Okay, Richard Jubenville. Hello, Richard. Good to see you. Worked outside all day and evening. Roz is short for Roswell. Made $2 a day working for a rancher in Pinedale, Wyoming in 1952. Wow. Detasseling sucks. I got contaminated by a crop duster with an absolute, messed up my lungs for life. Ooh, wow. And Optical Man Jeff is including $15. Say thanks, Dave, for all you do. Such a great instructor. Yeah, it's an okay conductor, for most metals are. I mean, copper and silver are your good ones. Copper is the one that's widely used, but copper's scarce now, too. And I'm having some electrical work done. We're putting a split unit air conditioner in my wife's art studio because the wall unit that I put in there is just so noisy you can't think. In fact, I unboxed the thing and looked at it and went, oh my goodness, I don't know how I'm going to do this. I may end up having to hire somebody to put it in. Silver does corrode. You can get silver coated or silver plated PL259s. They had a vogue about 30, 40 years ago. And they form excellent contacts, but they do, like all silver, it gets, you need to polish them or get the stuff off of it. Let's see. Cody, where was your initial? I don't see that. He says he's got one number. He's continuing. Extra on the same day, I got an IC718 that I love. That's a nice newbie radio. And for someone who just wants to do single sideband, it's all you need. So all I hear in the air is the 7300. Great, but twice the price. The 7300 has been a market phenomenon in ham radio. That's one reason I picked it, was because it was very popular. Whereas the ICOM or the Yaesu radio was not, real common radio. I wanted something for the reference station that was common. Lots of people had it. You could ask other people questions, so on and so forth. Let's see, 1 mil gold bond wires. AU gold wire bonding was far easier than aluminum wire bonding, which was used for higher currents. Yeah. Okay, we are approaching the end of it. Any problem running coax through the same PVC pipe? No, as long as you've got your coax grounded at some point. Okay, like out by your ground rod where you have your lightning arresters. If it's grounded there, then it shields what's inside. Tonight was an interesting live stream. Okay, now you will notice that in this live stream I did not take any offline questions. Everything was out of the chat. So we had a very nice chat. Here we got a little bit sidetracked on the gold issue, but gold is gold. I've got gold wedding band. And I have no other gold. Now, I have had a couple Augies send me a tip in the mail in the form of an ounce of silver, which is worth $16 or $17, something like that. So I've got a couple of them tucked away here, which I thought was very nice of people to do that. It was, and I keep that. Those are kept saved. Okay, so tell me if you like this, where I just answer questions and we don't bring in any of the others. The others I answer in videos. And there will be a modification to that coming up in the July issue of QST. If that isn't a big hint. Um, what do you think of welded wire mat as opposed to wired radials? Well, it'll work, but I mean, the way the waves travel, they travel down the wire. Okay, so if you've got a mesh web, they are in essence traveling out and around. It would work as well as radials, but I don't think you would get tarnish is the word I was looking for. Yes. Um, okay, an antenna from MFJ I'd like to put in my attic. Got about 3.5 feet height and 40-foot long attic. Antenna is 44 feet long. You can just drop the ends down at the end. How far to keep the rock wool insulation do I need the ends? Rock wool. The fiberglass? That's your insulation there. You can insulate the wires. Just insulate them and don't worry about it. Okay, any tips for repairing the silicone buttons with the conductivity pads that have lost their conductivity? No, I don't. I think you're going to have to get new ones. A lot of the radios, like my 10 Tech, has a lot of those buttons on it with little pads. And the cat barfed on the radio. I just didn't quite catch the cat in time. The cat had a hairball and let it loose on the front panel of my 10 Tech. I ended up having to send the radio back to 10 Tech. And still, some of those buttons on that thing don't work. Is it $29 now? Wow, gone up. Been a miner for a heart of gold, and I'm getting old. Okay, thanks for the great stream. So I missed some of the questions from Augie's, but this format is fine. Okay, I like this format a lot. It's okay to get sidetracked. Hams like to rag chew. Answering in videos is better, allows you to prepare your response. Now, Benjamin, no rumors. I don't know where that rumor is coming from because I'm not going to say anymore. Okay, love the format here. Yes, this format's more interesting, fast-paced. Okay, was going to ask the same thing but forgot the ground cable. That's fine. Love the format. Thursday night with Dave. Rockwool is great. Spun lava. Oh, yeah, it's glass. Spun lava is glass. There's a volcano. Well, there's a big one in the Congo right now, which we're not getting a lot of information from because of the lack of technology there. There is a volcano in Iceland that is erupting right now, and it's a small volcano. And the hillsides are just covered with people who are coming out to see the latest volcano. I mean, people in Iceland live with volcanoes. So it's very interesting. Okay, so I'm going to say 73. I promised my wife at 8:15 local time that I will give her the internet back so she can watch her shows. And then that way we have a better internet connection. I think the connection was excellent tonight. So thank you all very much. I love you guys. Thank you for all the support that you provide to me and to other hams and everything. And I just appreciate all the kind responses and everything. Thank you all very much. So let's see, we peaked out at 222 concurrent viewers. It's come down a little bit because we've got a little long. But I'm going to say 73 to all. I will try to get on from Salt Lake. I'll take the laptop and stuff like that, and we will see if it works. Okay? It may or may not. We'll just have to see how it works. We're going to be in a campground, and the internet may not be that good. So if things get really weird on Thursday, just remember I will be back the following Thursday. So until we next meet, 73.